Well, welcome everybody. My name's Justin Sanders. I am our CFO, which is odd for this purpose, but prior to that, I was a clinical social worker and helped do a lot to get our growth and transformation team up and running. So, kind of agenda for today, we'll have our presentation. We'll actually engage in an experiential activity. We'll have a panel of some of our therapists, rec team, and one of our youth who've been a part of this, and then we'll give a tour of some of the spaces that we do some of this work in. So excited for you guys to get to see some of that. A couple of things that we hope for you to come away with today, I'm reminded we've got your workbooks that a lot of this stuff is in as well. So feel free to follow along as we chat through the day. But the big points of today is really try to give everybody some exposure to what we do in what we call growth and transformation. And so really that's a combination of mental health and recreation. We use terms like transformational experiences, which you'll hear a little bit about today, and some other things to help bring about healing for the youth that we work with. So a couple of things that we want to highlight today. We really just want you to understand some of the therapeutic benefits of fun, recreation. We want you to be able to think through and imagine what recreation might look like in your own practice context, how you might be able to turn recreation and even ordinary experiences into a therapeutic experience. We want to brainstorm ideas for resident life activities that could be turned into something that can become more therapeutic and more helpful for healing. We want you to just really be able to learn how to take an experience and make it transformational through just some processing techniques. We want to talk a little bit about the brain, and we really want you to be able to think about and understand and kind of imagine what are some of the resources in your own community. We know that you guys might be coming from various different parts of the state, and so just thinking through what's in my backyard that I can use in a really helpful way. So that's the hope today. A little bit about just kind of our practice context and who we are. We started about 15 years ago, and really IMMERSE's goal is to help transform youth from crisis into overcomers. And so we're working with 14 to 24-year-olds who've experienced various different types of trauma. So that could be homelessness, aging out of foster care, having been adopted, trafficking victims, things like that. And the idea is to help them move from that trauma into a place of becoming a whole, resilient, integrated adult who can function well and experience flourishing. So kind of the problem statement that we've been working from is really that abuse, neglect, and trauma has really wreaked havoc on the relationships, the identity, and the resilience of these youth. So, about 15 years in, we have determined that when we surround youth from crisis with unconditional relationships, a vision for what their life can be, and the tools that anticipate their needs and dreams, we can really create a climate that brings about healing, growth, and transformation. So tools, vision, relationships are a key to what we think bring about healing for young people. And so that's a lot of what this growth and transformation work that we've done is all about. So you'll hear a lot about that today. We do this through a couple of different programs. We've got a youth shelter right around the corner that's designed for 18 to 24-year-olds to really be able to protect them in that experience of homelessness. It's designed for them. It's kind of an ideal scenario or an ideal environment for them to be able to get settled, heal, and remain safe. We've got our youth center, which is the building that we're in. So just kind of right next door is where a lot of the hub of the activity goes. This is just a program for young people to come and experience relationship, find tools, and really become inspired to continue on their journey toward healing and what's possible. We've got a transitional living program. We call it Life Base. and you'll probably hear that term a couple of times today, where we work in foster and adoptive families. We work in homes, apartments in the community, predominantly with 18 to 24-year-olds, to really help them over a long period of time, kind of 18 months, 24 months, something like that, to help, again, kind of give them those relationships, tools, and vision for what's possible. And then we work with our alumni. So as youth graduate out, we want to continue to surround them with a community and support that they can continue to flourish. So a couple of things that we wanted you to hear a little bit about. You know, when we first started this work, we were kind of farming out a lot of the therapeutic intervention that happened for our young people. What that created as an experience for them was really some disconnectedness in their ability to heal. You know, they'd kind of come here for one thing, go here for another thing, and it wasn't always the most effective for our young people. They didn't always get the greatest care, the most integrated care, and so, you know, we kind of determined at that point, we've got to do some better work to bring some of those things in-house. And so that was really a commitment that we made about 2.5 years ago. We said we've got to be able to grow the work of growth and transformation here at IMMERSE. And so we kind of set out on this journey to go from no therapists to now we've got 5 therapists, we've got a clinical director, we've got an entire recreation team. And so it really was with the goal of helping make sure that we can accelerate healing for our youth and that we can really ask some questions, do some fact finding, and create a better situation for young people to be able to experience healing around the state. So as we did that, we really wanted to make sure that we got amazing care. We really wanted to make sure that we were able to build into our therapists. And so as we grew our team, we knew that they needed really good training. We knew that they needed access and exposure to some of the best ways to help young people heal. And we knew we needed to connect them with mentors and a peer learning cohort and different things like that. We realized that an unhealthy therapist is unlikely to be able to help a young person heal. And so that was critical in our work, and you'll get to hear some about that today. We also knew that we really needed to do some evaluative work around our work, and so we're engaging in some third-party evaluation and things like that just to continue to learn, continue to shape what it is that we're doing in this kind of healing work. So the big goal for us was to create a therapeutic option, a therapeutic intervention for our young people that was immediate, that was tailored to who they are and what they need, that is integrated in with the rest of our programs, and that's super available for them, that starts day one, that's there exactly when they need it, whenever they need it. And so, I hope that as you hear us talk today, you'll see some of those threads in what we've been able to do, and can come away from this time today, not with a feeling of, whoa, that's cool that IMMERSE has done that, but with a feeling of, oh, those are some really good ideas that I can take back to my own practice setting and really, really integrate. So, kind of core principle that we want you guys to come away from our talk with is that healing is vital to a youth's flourishing, and that therapy and recreational experiences really accelerate some of that healing. And so you'll get to hear again about the therapy work that we do, the recreation work that we do, and I'm hopeful that sparks your imagination. Couple of just reflection questions. I'd love for you guys to take a minute or so to just think about these. So, how would you define this problem and solution? We've talked a little bit about that, but what does that look like for you? What are some of the behavioral and mental health challenges that your clients face? Like, what's tricky for them? Where do you find them getting really stuck? And what are the obstacles that your clients face in accessing mental health supports? So take a minute to just kind of think on that, and then maybe turn to your partner and share some answers, or partner, neighbor, I guess. Y'all aren't really partners, but turn to your neighbor and just chat about this for a minute or two. All right, let's draw everybody back in, and I would love to introduce to you guys really the newest member of our growth and transformation team, Julie Whalen. Julie's joined us, a month ago or so? Yeah, as our director of growth and transformation, and she is what we like to call a teen whisperer. She understands what it looks like to help young people, teens, young adults, heal. And we're super grateful to have her on our team. We're excited to have her on our team, And so, Julie, you're going to come up and take over.
Hey! How are y'all? Okay, so I get to share with you guys about the brain development between the ages of 14 and 24. So this is what we like to call the second window of opportunity, the neuroplasticity of the brain. And originally, back in the 80s and the 90s, there was an understanding within the community, especially in the psychological community, or a mindset that the brain really couldn't change. But as technology has advanced, what we have seen is that the brain has this unbelievable ability to change. And we call this the neuroplasticity of the brain. And so there's this phenomenon called the plastic paradox. And so the way that I want to explain this is to share about the ACE study. How many of you are familiar with, okay, everyone, okay, is that a lot of these youth that will come to you have had extreme trauma. They've had abuse, they've had neglect, they've witnessed abuse, they haven't had food, they may not have stable housing. They're at tremendous risk, right? Emotionally, they're vulnerable, and they've had a lot of trauma. And so what this has done to the brain is it actually affects the physical development of their brains, right? And we know that the age that they're most primed for the neuroplasticity of the brain is 0 to 3. And that's where we see just the exponential growth, 0 to 3, and then it kind of tapers off. But then when they come to us, it's the ages 18 to 24. And so what we have the opportunity to do here at IMMERSE is to actually be able to partner with them and facilitate positive experiences. And so this next slide gives the example of our ACEs, our adverse childhood experiences. And then where you guys come in is our hope, or my hope today, is to facilitate you with knowing that you are equipped to counter some of this by providing some of these positive childhood experiences. And so I've listed the adverse childhood experiences for each of you, the physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, neglect, living with a family member with mental illness, witnessing domestic violence, poverty, racism and discrimination, separation from a loved one, violence in the community, a family member who's in prison, and divorce of parents. What we saw through that, and then around 1997, they did a study with 17,000 individuals. You guys are familiar with this. And they were able to see that there is a direct correlation when individuals are faced with these kind of experiences, is that there is a correlation with their mental health when they have these experiences. And then, of course, there's this also research done by this lady, Dr. Bethel, who said, well, what if we provide positive experiences? Can that offset some of what we're seeing with the adverse childhood experiences? And so this study looked at how can we create a safe place for people to talk about their feelings? How can we provide support? If they don't have family, how can we put family around them? And the enjoyment of participation in community traditions, how do we facilitate that to where they can be a part of a community? How can we help them develop a sense of belonging, feel supported by friends? How can they have at least one or two non-parent adults who genuinely care, who say, hey, I see you, I care about you, you have value, you have importance, you have worth? And then how can we create a safe environment and protection and by an adult within the home? There's also another a screener. I didn't put it on this particular side, but what it is, it's the Positive Adult Experiences Screener. It's quite similar. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because our population is 18 to 24. So the first screener is up to 18, and then the second screener is 18 to 24, or actually beyond that. And that one is very similar: positive relationships, meaningful activities, self-care, a sense of meaning and purpose. So this next slide I find to be fascinating. So if you hear just the ACE study, you'd be discouraged, right? It's pretty discouraging, right? It feels somewhat hopeless. Like, what are we going to do? And so, again, this goes back to the neuroplasticity of the brain, and this is where you guys are meaningfully placed within your communities to bring change. So I just want to encourage you guys and empower you that you're here for a reason, to actually help facilitate these positive experiences with the youth and the people that you work with. And so if you look to the left, the 0 to 70%, the bar on the left measures the percentage with depression or poor mental health. So you have 0% of depressed up to 70% of depressed. So, oh, thank you. Bless y'all. Okay, here you guys go. Okay, hopefully, when I saw this graph, I may have gasped, because I'm like, oh, that is that's such good news. And so, but from 0 to 70, what you can see is those are the increase of mental health. So the percentage of the population that would have zero depression would be the lowest bar, up to 70%. And so the 0 to 2, that blue line, is no ACE, so no adverse childhood experiences. So if a child or a youth has 0 to 2, no ACEs, that line's pretty steady, right? So regardless of whether or not they have the positive experiences, their mental health is going to be better. But then, if we go up to the red line, right? So that's it drastically, even with one ACE, goes up to about 40%. What was that?
I'm sorry, I was saying that was a signal.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, just even one ACE, goes up to about 40%. But look, if you have the 3 to 5 positive experiences, it drastically is reduced to 24%. Think neuroplasticity, right? Our brains are capable of change. And then 6 to 7 PCEs, or positive experiences, takes it down really close to as if you had 0 adverse experiences. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
So, and then look at the increase too. Then you've got 2 to 3 ACEs, 4 to 8 ACEs. But the reason I really want to highlight this and accentuate this, punctuate this, however you want to say it, is to know that my hope is that when you walk away today, that you'll be encouraged. Like, wow, look how low we can get this down to even 20%. And we like to say here at IMMERSE, there's no such thing as impossibilities. So I'd like to believe that we can continue to see that go lower. And I believe that the technology will support that as the years go ahead. As the way that we originally thought the brain worked, as technology has advanced, our hope level has actually gone up. We've seen, okay, wait a second, look, we were wrong on how we ascertained this. And so this next slide, I'm going to switch over. We're going to shift gears here, and I'm going to talk about EMDR. So, and where you guys can come into play is this would be your referral to a therapist who does trauma work. So to summarize and to keep it quick, I'm going to delve into only 2 different types of trauma therapy, one being EMDR and the other being our simple, gold standard cognitive behavioral therapy. But Oh, thank you guys again. There we go. So I love EMDR. I love doing EMDR with individuals, with clients. I find it to be what talk therapy might feel very cerebral. EMDR takes it and really, I'll see clients cry that I've never seen cry, that I might have worked with for 2 years, and they're like, why am I crying? It's because through the bilateral movement of the brain, how many of you guys are familiar with EMDR? So it's the rapid eye movement and reprocessing. Okay, so what you would do with a client is you would first make sure they're stable, and then they're grounding, that they're grounded. So I teach a ton of grounding techniques in case they're dissociative, like how can they be grounded? And then secondarily, then we would create a treatment plan around the neural networks. I believe, Lane, have you passed out the neural network sheets? Okay, so Lane is going to give you guys some sheets on the different neural networks. So there are about 6 clusters within our own brains of various neural networks that we have. And so what can happen, though, is when we are exposed to trauma, that you get stuck in this mindset that you can't get out of. And so it is on the left side right here, as you guys see this. So we have survival. A lot of you guys you'll see your individuals, your youth, the people that you work with, will have this neural network that is a result of trauma. The negative belief is I'm abandoned, I'm alone, it's not safe to feel, I'm unimportant, I'm invisible. Well, through the process of EMDR, as we desensitize the individual to that emotion, because it will be paired with a really distressing emotion, and then as we desensitize them, what we do is we get their level down, and then we move them over to what's called the adaptive beliefs, which I love. I mean, I can't imagine anybody who wouldn't want to be on the right side of these adaptive beliefs. It's really encouraging to see the work surrounding EMDR. But I can survive. I can exist. I can get my needs met. I can begin to learn when and how to ABCD. I have value regardless. I can get my needs met. So, and then down at the bottom too, there's PTSD. You guys know that for veterans, for those with PTSD or just anyone with PTSD, this is an evidence-based treatment that is kind of their first pick to use in therapy. And so it may be the PTSD, maybe the person actually feels like I'm going to die, I'm in danger, I'm overwhelmed. However, if you can allow the client to work through and reprocess, they'll get over to the other side of I survived, I can get through this, or I did get through this. So it's really empowering. So they go from being weak or having self-disgust to empowered and feeling strong. Like, I got through that. Like, I'm here. I'm still here. I survived that. And so I don't, for lack of time, I don't have the ability to go through all of these other neural networks, but I would encourage you just to read through them, because I can't imagine anybody, like whether they do EMDR or not, wouldn't want to have these alternative beliefs, these adaptive beliefs. So that's a little bit about EMDR. So I'm going to move you guys over to CBT. So again, the gold standard for therapy. So when you deal with trauma, a lot of times there's those core maladaptive beliefs, similar to what I just shared with you guys with EMDR. And, you know, our thoughts, behaviors, and feelings are connected to our core beliefs. And so what you can do, or when you refer someone to a clinician, what that clinician can do is help the client to develop and recognize a pattern, and then to go after that maladaptive pattern. CBT, a lot of times you see a lot of homework. You can send them home with a ton of homework. It's readily available online. If you Google CBT ideas or homework ideas, you guys can do this with people. It's very user-friendly, so to speak. Like it's pretty understandable, like that anyone is capable of being able to use this easily. So I would just encourage you guys, even if you don't refer to an actual clinician, to just look at some of the cognitive distortions. Like if you just Google cognitive distortions or ways to deal with cognitive distortions, CBT, there's a whole bunch of lists, like from catastrophizing to all sorts of different ways that you guys can help the people that you're walking with to develop through that and to move past their trauma. So our next slide practical applications. All I did was take the positive childhood experiences and put them on there so that you guys can think practically, what can I go home with today and use today? And so there it is. You know, talking about your feelings. We could add to that. You know, this is just this lady came up with these. I think we could probably add 10 more right off the top if we as a room processed, hey, what are some more things that we could do that would be positive experiences? So, but we do know that this offsets the ACEs, the ACEs. And so we can provide this and we can help facilitate this with the people that we work with. So the last slide I believe I have before our core values is our brains. The neuroplasticity of the brain. Our brains are wired for love and for connection. Isn't that fascinating? Our brains are wired to be loved. Like we're wired to love and to be loved. And so, the failure to thrive, like they've done research in orphanages, it's heartbreaking, is that there was that lack of nurturing or attachment, that bond. And when that didn't happen, it's because our brains are wired for this, like we're created for this. And here at IMMERSE, we have one of our core values is we have with worship and scrappy. Well, our worship, the way we play this out with our faith praxis is God is love. So that he's the one, like where Jesus loved us so much, they laid down his life for us. And so I love that, like, the science supports that our brains are wired for love. Like Jesus himself, he told the religious leaders, they were like, well, what do you think are the two greatest commandments? He's like, that one's easy. Love God and love others. Like everything's summarized through love. But I just think it's fascinating that the science shows that our brains are wired for love. We thrive in love. And again, if you look back to all the ACEs, it's a lack of love. Somewhere, somehow, someone wasn't loved well or they didn't display love well. And so, and again, the positive experiences that I share with you guys are a way that we can facilitate that with those we work with. So, last slide for you guys. The IMMERSE core principles. Here at IMMERSE, we say that the teen and young adult years provide a pivotal stage of brain plasticity and a biological window of opportunity for lifelong transformation. So, anyway, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate y'all taking the time to listen. And then I believe that next thing that we're going to do is we're going to reflect. So you're going to just spend about 1 or 2 minutes. How can this information about the adolescent brain development inform your practice? So just take about a minute or two and just discuss this amongst yourselves. Okay. Is anyone willing to share some of what they've been reflecting on? We pass you the microphone and you can speak into the microphone and give us your thoughts.
Would anybody like to share?
Just whatever your thoughts are on so far what we've presented.
Oh, you got a mic.
We were talking about the list that if you'll flip back to it, it starts with there. Whoops, right there.
Right here?
Yes. With a lot of our kids that we're serving right now, at least me, for myself, I get stuck on number 2. So how do you overcome that generational, epigenetic, all that's built into non-supportive family of these kids that have ACEs and tons of trauma?
Want me to answer that? That's a great question.
Well, I took a note. I just said our kids, the ones I'm working with right now, need at least 10 positive experiences.
Yeah.
So I need to look at how do I build that into their lives. But man, you put the list up and I went, oh, this is great. And then I got to number 2 and I went, number 3, number 4. Well, okay. So that's kind of where, that's where we are at with these kids we are serving.
So the research supports with those within foster care or who've been adopted, who have no family or they're they need family. The research supports that if you can provide as close to family, it gives the ability to thrive. So that would be, one of those things where we hope here at IMMERSE, what we do, it's part of our base goals of at least one. And then our hope is when they graduate the program that they'll stay connected. We have an alumni program too. And then to just help them build life skills where if they don't have a healthy family system, that we can come alongside of them and help them develop that or get connected to a family. So we're pretty intentional about creating connections, about surrounding that, because you're right, it's vital that it helps us thrive. We're to be born into caring, loving families. And so when that's not available, as much as we can facilitate that, to do that. And so that would probably you and your team, like just creatively coming up with it. How do we do this? Let's talk, let's brainstorm.
Any other
questions?
Any other shares?
So at the ranch where I work, I find that we definitely do our best to try to do this, and like you said, that with relationships and all that, that's really the part where we struggle, is because these kids don't know how to relate, and so we try to model it to them, but their biggest struggle is even with providing these things, it is very difficult for them to walk it out because they just don't know how to do it. And once a conflict comes along, they want to run away and they go into crisis. And so that's kind of where we find the disconnect, is how do we put into practice, how do we give them more opportunities to walk out healthy relationships, and so, because every one of those things gives them an opportunity, but sometimes they don't participate in order to receive the opportunity to practice it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it's hard, but I think that's, especially like the brain trauma you were talking about, I love this stuff. And the kids love to learn about these things because they think, oh, wow, I'm not broken.
Yeah.
It can be fixed. If my brain is plastic, then I know that it can be reformed and remolded if I just am willing to put in a little work. It's just hard sometimes to find their motivation.
Maybe one more. Anybody else want to share?
I'll mention Karen Purvis's work. She does a lot of attachment work. You guys may be familiar with her. And if you look up Karen Purvis, she's actually passed away, but she was a professor over at TCU who did a ton of work with orphans and foster kids and those that just had reactive attachment disorder. So she may be a good, just if you research her. There's also a Love and Logic manual that is specifically tailored to youth that have been traumatized, that have gone through extreme trauma. So that would be another practical tool you could use. So Love and Logic's work on traumatized youth, and then Karen Purvis's work.
Bruce Perry is one of my favorites. Bruce Perry, and his famous quote that has always stuck with me is, "Relationships are the agents of change." And if you haven't read his book, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, absolutely the best book. It's really hard to follow, so if you can do it on audiobook, I highly suggest it. But it gives several different scenarios of these kids who went through major adverse trauma, and the one relationship, just the one relationship that gave them that feeling. There was this one foster mom, and this sticks out to me so much. This one foster mom who would get these kids that were school-age kids and never had that connection. So she would cradle them and hold them like infants and rock them. And it did. The first 0 to 3, their brainstem, the connection, it just wasn't there. But having that foster mom that came in and would rock an 8-year-old, when they were upset, treating them like they were colicky, and rocked them, and they grew up and they were successful. I mean, it's not even being successful, but successful in having a relationship and having connections with other people, you know, and it's that one person.
So good.
So it's a really great book if you haven't read it. I have it if you guys need a copy.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so our next speaker is Jake Ritter. Jake has been here going on 12 years. So he has, is that right? 12, 11. Okay, going on 11 years. And so he was one of the first original, I believe, 4 that came to IMMERSE 11 years ago. And I'm just so grateful for Jake. He's one of our trauma therapists. He is the definition of scrappy. So he will jump in there, whatever it looks like, whatever comes at his day, he will just completely readjust it and dive on in, and just has a heart for these youth. Will just sit with them and has a very calming presence. I've really appreciated being around Jake because I feel like he embodies like gentleness and that calm demeanor that helps take our kids that are activated at a really activated state and brings them down just through that calm presence. So, Jake Ritter. Do you want this to look at?
No, it's okay.
Oh,
I'll just
okay.
copy this here, yeah. All right. All right. Hey, everybody. Jake Ritter. As Julie mentioned, I've been here for about 11 years. Here in February, it'll be 11. So I started at IMMERSE as a transitional coach. So I was working with youth in our life-based program, essentially case management. That's what our coaches are. Did that for about 2 or 3 years. After that, when this drop-in center opened up, I was the drop-in center coordinator. And so I've been doing work here in the drop-in center. I've been the mentor coordinator. And currently for the last 2 years, after I got my LMSW, I have been doing therapy. So I've been doing therapy, like I said, for about 2 years here at IMMERSE. Sorry, let me get. I think my slides are gone. It's okay. We'll roll with it. I don't see my slides on here, but really the question that a lot of our therapists are getting hung up on sometimes here at IMMERSE is how do we bring therapy to our young adults who are really reluctant to doing traditional therapy? If you think about traditional therapy, it's you go to an office building, you sit down across from a therapist, you speak for an hour. Oftentimes it's mandated. If you think about our youth, they have high distrust in authority. They have a lot of concern around the genuineness of like, hey, is this person really hearing me out? Are they really there for me? Or is this just somebody that's just trying to get through the day? Okay. Oftentimes they believe that therapy won't help. Possibly. Is it okay? Maybe they got moved around. It's okay. It's okay. I'll roll with it. Yeah. It's all good. Yeah, they like believing that therapy won't help. That's mandated. It can be a sign of weakness or a sign of fear of judgment. And then confidentiality. Who is this person going to share this with? They've shared their story several times, and so they're often reluctant to sit down with a therapist. And so here at IMMERSE, we try to be scrappy in the sense of like, how can we bring therapy to our youth? Okay. And that's what I want to talk about. It's just different ways that we can bring therapy to a youth in maybe more unconventional ways. So our core principle is that, we walk with the whole person in a holistic and empowering manner. So our therapist's presence, consistency, and authenticity is going to lead to buy-in and a better chance at improving emotional well-being. So I'll talk about a few ways here that we do that. So a question that I just want you guys to be thinking about as we go through this is just how do you check in with your clients to gauge their mental health, okay? You may not be a therapist in this room, and that's okay. You can still do a lot of therapeutic techniques, as Julie mentioned earlier, to really dive into that question of like, hey, how are you doing? How are we feeling today? So here's a bunch of different ways that we integrate our therapy in just different areas. So I'll talk through each one of these individually, but we have what's called our life-based and station welcome weeks. We do what's called mental health moments, breakthrough staffings, and then just various community building events like our gatherings that we do each week on Tuesdays. I'll start off with Welcome Week. So Welcome Week got started specifically for our life-based program, which is our transitional living program that our youth live in. What we notice is that these youth are coming into our program, and oftentimes it's a period of stagnancy when they come in. They're not really connected to people. They're getting settled into a new house, and they don't really know what to do. They're not connected to anybody, and so we as therapists and on the mental health side, we were trying to find ways to build community, to allow them to feel more empowered, inspired, and valued in this program. And so if you think of Welcome Week as like a college freshman orientation, that's essentially what we're going for here, is like that first week when you're in college, that you're going to be surrounded by people that are going to be showing you different aspects of the program. We're going to get you connected to your therapist on day one. We're going to introduce you to your coach on day one. We're going to do the tours, and we really tried to really model that what you'd see like at college, just because there's a lot of studies out there that show that youth that go through, or freshmen that go through an orientation like that, there's a high likelihood that they're going to come back for year two and to be connected and to be involved in a lot more in the program. So each day of a Welcome Week is a different aspect of our program. So day one, it's again getting to know your team, your circle of supports. We're going to bring the entire team into our room. We're going to introduce you to your therapist, your coach, the employment coach, just everyone that's involved that's going to be a part of their story, their journey in this program. And again, different days are for different things. So day two might be all about life-based and just what it means to be in life-based. Day three, we're going to get on the bus with you. We're going to ride the bus. We're going to do a lot of things with you. It's someone mentioned it out here, but relationship is key, right? That's the whole goal, is that we want to build relationship and walk with our youth as they're going through our program. Okay, so mental health moments. That's another area that we try to bring therapy to youth in a more unconventional way. So Mental Health Moments was inspired through our drop-in center. We have youth who come into our center. There was a period of time there where there was a lot of turmoil going on. There was just a lot of conflict. And I think what we were realizing is that we were being more reactive than proactive here. And so we decided to, and as you see as we're going around here, this is a mental health moment that our therapists can do with a youth as soon as they walk in the door. And these are things that you can take with you that if you just want to check in and do a mental health check-in with your youth, these are like practical applications that you can use yourself. What it does is that as soon as the youth walks in the door, a therapist is going to sit down with the youth and just say, hey, how are you doing today? You mind doing a mental health moment? Every single day. So you're building relationship, you're building rapport over time. And as they're filling this out, they're sitting there and they're talking to you about their day, and you're able to, as a therapist or as a coach or anybody, you can take aspects of therapy using CBT or DBT or solution-focused techniques in these mental health moments to really bring therapy to the youth where they're not even realizing they're getting therapy at this time. They're getting a lot of those mental health needs met up front to where then it can impact the rest of their day. So it's simple, it's practical for any environment. You can take this anywhere and you can just do a check-in with your youth, and it's a way just to really gauge kind of where they're at mentally. Yes?
How frequently do you use these?
Every day, every single day. Yeah, so this is what's available to our youth here in our drop-in center. I didn't mention this earlier. I'm the therapist specifically for our drop-in center. We have 4 therapists here at IMMERSE. Each one is assigned to a different program. Specifically for the OC, any youth that's walking in the door, our goal is myself or any other therapist that's available and ready in the OC is going to approach these youth and, hey, we're going to do our mental health check-in. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes, allow the youth to fill it out and then just go over it with them. Review it. Under I think it says like, are there any brewing issues that you have today or something like that? Such and such, it's making me really mad. I'm thinking I'm about to go hit them or something along those lines. That's your opportunity right there that you could step in and say like, hey, have you decided or have you thought about, taking a deep breath and really thinking through of different ways that you could provide some relief or some comfort to that youth before they do something that could affect their day. So, good question. So this is the mental health moment here that we're looking at. Before we move on, is there any questions about the mental health moment. This one is a visual one that we have. Oftentimes, we'll fill it out on myself on the computer, but like this is something that we can actually hand to the youth. I love having the pictures to kind of visually see like faces of like how we're feeling today. Sometimes youth need that if they can't internalize like how am I feeling. They can at least see a photo and be like, okay, I'm closer to this than that. And so that's a way for them to just be able to fill this out if you have youth who need that. We have staffings and breakthroughs. It's another way that we try to bring therapy to youth in, again, more unconventional ways. So our staffings, it's super important for our staffings that we, you just use the minimum necessary in terms of like talking about the youth situation. So staffings for you guys, I'm not sure how everyone in here does their staffings with the therapist or talking about youth's caseloads. But when we go in the staffings, we tend to, our therapist will be sitting in on each one of our program staffings. But yeah, we're not gonna be talking about the youth specific situations or what they talk about with us in therapy, but we're gonna really talk more about just observable behaviors like, hey, this youth is, showing signs of aggression or, they've stated to us that they were angry or mad or sad or whatever that looks like. So, we want to protect all the sensitive information that we can. We want to focus on those observable behaviors rather than history. I think where it gets really cool is the breakthrough aspect of our staffing. So breakthrough is a term that we established to where like if there's a specific case that is brought to the table in a staffing of like, hey, I'm really struggling with this youth. That's an opportunity for a coach and a therapist to collaborate together in the room to what we would like to call prescribing an intervention. And so that's where we'll talk a little bit more about transformational experiences as we get further in here. But that's an opportunity for like, say, it could look a lot of different ways, but it could be like, I'll give one that we've done before. We had a youth was struggling with anger management. And so it was affecting his ability to go to work, to interact with other housemates in the home. And it was a week after week after week of just constant conflict with every aspect of his life, and it involved around his anger. So we came together in a staffing and said, how can we prescribe an intervention, and what can we do to allow this youth to express this anger in a more healthy way? And the intervention that we prescribed here was that we got him set up with MMA classes and allowed him to, we said that the coach would go with him to these MMA classes and to help him get some of that anger out in a more healthy manner. He did it with his coach, and so that was an opportunity for rapport. And you saw over time how he was able to, again, whenever he was stressed, that was his coping mechanism. It was like, hey, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go to the gym, or I'm gonna go to these classes, because it was available to him 24/7. So he could just go and do that. And again, it was just a really cool way that we were able to take coaching and therapy and bring it all together into one. So, so reflection time. So just take a moment. Can you brainstorm a couple ways how you could maybe use this breakthrough practice in your own staffings that you have in your own practice? And then what are ways that you could implement mental health moments into your work with clients? So just take a moment. I think there's a spot in your workbook or on your notes. And just think about how you can incorporate some of these practices in your own work. A couple of my slides went. Yeah, they're not.
I don't mind being the one. I just don't want anyone to think that you can't talk. Okay, so I think these would be really great me and Ashley were just talking about how, being able to just present those to our kids at different times in the day. For me, I do part-time house parenting also, and work with the house parents a lot. And so being able to just give them a stack of these and say, okay, if you're noticing there's something off, because, your spidey senses hit sometimes first thing in the morning whenever a kid wakes up just not quite right. Just say, hey, why don't you fill this out for me? And then they can pass it on to me, and I can run to the school and see them later on just to kind of address that. Or even just, having those available at any time so that they know that they can fill that out. Because sometimes they don't even know how to put to words what it is, but it helps them know that somebody's going to see it and talk to them about it maybe.
Love that. Yeah, that's what's amazing about these mental health moments, is that you can take them anywhere. And it doesn't have to be on paper. So if you just know these questions in your head and you just know like, hey, this is the way I'm going to check in with you, again, you can take it anywhere. So for sure.
I'm Michael Robinson. I'm a youth director in Batesville. One of my youth leaders, he came up with a happy and a crappy. So he always
I love that.
He always asks the kids whether it's the week, whether it's the day. It's like, give me your happy, give me your crappy. And so it's been an interactive way. I love these sheets. I'm definitely going to tie those in.
Cool.
So
Awesome. I love the happy and crafty. Yeah, we might have to take that. So that's awesome. Okay. Any others before we move on? We good? Awesome. Well, I'm going to pass it on to Jimmy Ray Duvall, one of our recreational facilitators. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.
How's it going? I have a stack of stuff because that's how I like to carry myself. All right. Welcome. So, Jimmy Ray, I've worked in recreation for about a decade now. My background, I've done therapeutic rec for most of my career. So therapeutic rec is used in recreation to promote and maintain physical, social, and mental well-being. Now that can be in response to an injury, so sometimes they're in rehabs, a clinical setting. Sometimes it's for a lifelong, if there's a medical or developmental disability, help you get the most holistic care we can. Sometimes it's just community support, so there's some rec therapists that work at college campuses, stuff like that. So I've done community care. I've worked in developmental medical camps for a while. I've done behavioral, now here in the community setting. So to lay out kind of the groundwork, we talk about recreation, but what is recreation? Well, it's a lot of things. When you think just the word recreation, you think parks and rec, you think recreational use of different drugs, right? Those all fit in. When we talk about recreation, we're saying the things that you choose to do for no other driver except for intrinsic motivation. So the things that you choose to do because you want to. We all want power and control of our lives, especially our youth. So they're going to take hold of that when they can. We're going to do is help them steer to the healthiest choices they can, right? Maybe you've heard the phrase that play is the work of childhood. Yeah. So that's where you're learning empathy. It's the first time, if you're playing house, as a kid, you put yourself in someone else's roles. Or if you're playing tag, I chased you, and now you're chasing me. We've just flipped the scripts. And I have a small taste of what it was like for you. I'm learning autonomy, what I can say I want to play versus I have stopped, right? So recreation, especially as youth, it's important, but for all of us, but in our development, a lot of our youth, whether it's been facilities, interrupted placements, their chances to play have been taken away quite often. So they've missed those key milestones in development. So we see recreation as a way to pour back into that. Now, transformational experiences, I want you to think about a time when you really discovered something about yourself, what you care about, maybe a friendship that really meant something to you. Maybe you discovered like a real strength about yourself. If I had to guess, especially in childhood, it was at a camp. Maybe it was on a team that you played with. Maybe it was an after-school club. It's something that you chose to do away from your family unit with your friends. It could have even been as a latchkey kid running around the neighborhood doing dangerous stuff, right? Playing with firecrackers. You probably learned something in that play zone, right? We found, there's big moments that really determine who we are, that we have those self-discovery. That someone's not saying, hey, Johnny, I know it's you're a really good listener and you seem to motivate people. No, you're playing some kind of capture the flag with your friends, and you notice that people kept getting behind you and listening to you. And you discovered maybe I have influence over people, right? Or I went to this camp when I was 13, and I discovered what it meant to make friends that really understood me. We have a way that we can create those experiences, kind of like you talked about earlier, those milestones we've missed. We're going to curate and do our best to lay the groundwork for those things to happen, to give those wins back. So big picture, we think recreation, we think of using our free choice, especially with IMMERSE, that's like your general exercise. It's good for us. It's going to maintain our mental, social health, but maybe it's not targeted to a certain goal. So think about playing basketball behind the OC. It's good for us. Are we working on any particular goals at that time? Maybe not. Maybe it's just maintaining health, right? Transformational experience would be like physically training versus I go run on the track one day, I lift weights. Transformational experience is like someone who's lifting weights to increase their bench press. we have a very targeted experience with a very targeted outcome. So that's kind of how we're going to use those terms from here. All right. So a couple things that we found with recreation, it's really about how we learn. So there's this whole cycle, Kolb's cycle, from the experience to what we thought about it, to the ideas that we came from that, and to trying something new. I have simplified this for our youth because I want this to be a skill they can take. Basically, we ask 3 big questions after everything. What happened? So what? And now what? And I use those 3 questions over and over because I want our kids to become self-learners. So here's kind of what we're saying. I went to camp by myself. I didn't know anybody. What happened? Well, I made a friend. So what? I don't know. Maybe if I go somewhere that's uncomfortable, I might make a connection. It might not go terribly. Now what? I think I might join a team when I go back to school. Or I might be a little bit less nervous about joining a new club. I've taken this experience and learned something that's going to help me grow forward. What we want is to not always be the ones that are giving our kids these lessons, but giving them the skills that they can start to develop on their own, right? So when they have the hard day at school, when they get in a fight, they can use the same process. So what happened? I got in a fight with Tyler and me had an argument and a fought, and now here I am by myself. What happened? Well, I couldn't regulate that emotion. They're not going to say it that way. I got mad. I hit him. What now? Well, this sucks. I wish that Tyler was still here. Now what? Me and Ben are still friends. I'm probably not going to fight him because I don't want to cost that relationship, right? Then on the flip side, I asked Sarah to go to the dance. It turned out okay. What? I think I could probably do that again. I can build a relationship, right? But letting them get those skills so they're not always dependent on us, because to be honest, they're not always going to have us right there beside them. We want to give them as many tools as we can. Let's move to this next one. All right, some practical application. So this is where it kind of gets, all right. Your youth are engaging in recreation regardless, right? They're using stuff to do their free times, but we all have biases with that. I remember growing up, I did not see a person exercise for fun until I was probably like in my late 20s, because I heard growing up that you should be too tired from working to have extra like energy to go like run a 5K or whatever. So I took that bias with me, right? If you see certain people engaging in certain activities, so I've got some magazines up here about cycling. What do I see? Well, I see a lot of, in hunting, I see a lot of middle class white guys. So for some of my youth, they don't see themselves. So is that really for me? That's something we have to overcome. Unfortunately, there's a real intersection of recreation and consumerism. Do I have a new bike? Do I have the right gear? So these are all biases we're going to have to work through. I will say we have some great resources here in Arkansas that we can open doors, but it's really helping youth feel like they are welcome and that they can participate in that. All right. So if you look on your shorter sheet, you'll have resources on there. It should be a list of, was that out in that first one? The 5? Yeah. All right, so a couple things on there. 52 state parks. There are, who else like to use our state park system? Has anyone ever booked an activity or event for their program? Some have? All right. So at these state parks, you're going to have some workers called interpreters. It's their goal to get people into the parks and help them engage. During the week, they are quite often sitting there looking for someone to offer programming to. The weekends, they're packed, but they need to fill their numbers. They need to fill their slots and like justify like their positions, right? If you used to come up to them and say, hey, I have, a couple youth who are really interested in this. Can you help us? They'll help design programming for you. Now you have to kind of hit their window. If you hit the middle of the week and just kind of tell them what it is that you're hoping to gain from it, they'll often work with you. I think the next one on there is the Game and Fish. All right. So they have resources at their nature centers. There's like a dozen around the state. They'll also bring stuff to you. So I had a group bring out, for free to us, an archery range to our site that our kids got to use. All it took was getting on there, asking, and just putting a request, and I get a whatever course, Butters education, like canoeing, archery, fishing. They'll bring stuff to you, no cost. Once again, they're at the same boat. They need to have programs available. So if you have a population that they can come serve, they're pretty excited. Next, I think I have the U.S. Forest Service. So in Arkansas, we have the Ouachita and the Ozark National Forest. Nationally renowned, they take up a pretty big part of our state. Hundreds of miles of trails, of rivers, open to public use. The cool thing about their website is as you go to a park, or not a park, but as a forest, whether it's Ozark or National, they'll show you different recreation areas. They have free maps and user guides that give you all the breakdowns, the helpful tips. There's another tag on there for permits, if you was to need a permit. And then there's another one for visitor use assistance. So it gives you what to expect weather-wise, things you can find like wildlife, things to make your trip easier. They have resources to help you plan your events there. I think another one on there is to have the Park Service and All Trails. Has anyone ever used the All Trails app or website? It's great. It combines different agencies, so city parks, state, federal, and even nonprofits that have trails available to you. You click in your distance, your location, and it's going to curate some like trips for you. Super helpful. So we have these resources. So what we're going to do with them? Well, we're trying to set up experiences that have some kind of goal to them, some kind of meaning. Now that can happen accidentally. We also have ways that we can make that happen intentionally. So I believe on the other side, you have a planning tool. Sorry, the other form? Yeah. That's what we use internally when we design our programs. What that shows to the youth is that, hey, this has meaning. We're not just taking a walk in the woods. We have some kind of goal. Those milestones you talked about earlier that they missed out on, we can create experience for that. So for example, taking youth backpacking into the woods, that's a scary thing. So we're going to break that test down. So for this weekend, we're taking like 8 youth backpacking for one night. Simple trail. We're taking care of the gear. But what we're going to process with them is, hey, you did a night of backpacking. You got that win in. That confidence is there. Being intentional with what we're front loading, what we want them to expect out of this, it shows 2 things. It shows to the youth that this is meaningful. Think about the homework you hated most in school is probably busy work. We don't ever want the youth to feel like we're just offering something just to keep you occupied. No, there's a goal to this, and so much I want to participate with you. So I would never offer an activity or intervention to youth that I wouldn't do myself. I want to model that this is worthwhile. And also get some idea, this is what we're working towards. It also sets the stage. So we've all heard icebreakers, those kind of things. Even communicating to the youth, hey, we're doing this because I want you to feel free. I want you to feel open during this. I want you to feel like this is a place you can share. Asking the question of what kind of chip would you be today? Then after they answer it, saying, hey, here's why I asked that. Because I want you to feel like you can share your ideas. That has meaning. Even the most sarcastic or like even critical teen, like they'll appreciate that. Like, oh, you actually want to hear what I had to say. Being that transparent with stuff really sets the stage. In the activities, at the end, you'll see skills. Thinking about the small things that a youth might need. So going to, let's say we're going fishing. The amount of kids who didn't know how to throw the fishing pole. All right, if I've thought through the skills that I need to make sure and describe, I'm breaking down the barriers. Because that's what the kids are going to see, the things that the reasons they can't do something. I'm thinking those same questions ahead and finding out solutions for those so I can support them all the way through. At the end, you'll see that thanks to the brief. Just questions I know at the end. So we take our kids rock climbing. I know there's a feeling of going up the wall. There's always going to be a feeling of coming back down. That's always a great processing point. I'm not telling the kids what to think. I'm just asking the questions where they can practice expressing and giving what their experience was. Then at the end, that notable win. So with processing and being intentional programming, making transformational experience, you can have an experience, but we can also make it meaningful just by having some kind of goal intended and then counting that win. So when it talks about processing, there's a couple easy wins or easy steps. One thing I always do is try to bring the group together in a circle. Almost every group I have to come to a circle before and after because it sets the stage that we're all equal members of this. Everyone's voice is heard. I can see all of you. You can see me. I'm not the one really leading this group. I'm sharing in this with you. And I'll say that to the youth. So some youth I've had for a year, they've heard me say it like a dozen times. But it also gives them comfort that, okay, I'm being heard at this point. One thing we'll do with that is we're going to count the win, right? We're really good at remembering what we did wrong, really good at remembering what was scary, but even the simple wins of, hey, so I took a youth out last week. We did a short hike. He said it was the furthest he'd ever walked. But having him say, so there's a goal that you thought you couldn't do, you got past it, that was all you, right? Yeah, that was me. When you ask these questions enough, the youth will start to state their own wins. So some ways you can ask that: what felt good today? What did you enjoy, right? Those questions make the youth state what the positive was. And once again, it takes us that control back to them. I'm not saying what I see in you. You're declaring that yourself and kind of claiming that. So building that self-esteem based off wins and experiences, something that I can't take away from them. If I say, hey, I'm proud of the way you did that, well, if they think I'm upset with them later, they're going to think that that win came away. But if they said, I completed that trail, no matter what the relationship with me or their peers are, they still have that win that's in their pockets, right? So another great thing is the natural consequences through this processing. If I asked you what happened, I'm not describing these things to you. So ask things like what felt good, what felt bad. That same youth, he carried his pack. He made a little like freeze-dried meal on the trail. He got to enjoy it. His work came off to him getting that meal, right? He had some control in that moment. It wasn't anything I did. I can't pull him to the top of the trail. He had to do that. A lot of our youth have had things imposed upon them or taken away by other ones. When you're using these like recreation settings, especially in the natural setting, the wins and losses are up to them. I talk about skateboarding as being a positive intervention for those with trauma, because if they push themselves hard and make whatever, that's totally up to them. But you can't make my skateboard not work. Now, if I do something and I take a spill, that's on me. I can kind of work on that through my own, right? It's putting all that autonomy back to them. All right, experiences for any environments. We often get stuck in the idea, especially with kind of that consumerism, I need to go to some national park. I have to go to Yellowstone. I have to go to Colorado to have an experience. Those are great. Those are horizon expanding, but the problem is they're not going to be accessible for our youth. So often we got to start small. So when I first take youth fishing, one of the first things we want to do is use one of the small creeks here in town because it's close to them. There's a pretty good chance they could walk to it on their own someday. I'm going to probably use some Walmart gear. So if they find something like at their cousin's house or something they check out from a library, this can be something they can translate to another activity. I'm going to take it somewhere we're probably going to catch something small. So I'm going to build a couple things. This is accessible. There could be adventure even in small spaces. Now from there we can build. We'll have some transformational experiences that are going across state lines. But I'm also going to take you to a trail right around the corner to remind you that adventure is accessible to you. We believe that recreations are rights. We understand that there are issues that can create barriers to access. So I want to break down as many of those as possible. Like another example of like fishing. Fly fishing is great. It's also expensive gear. It only works in certain situations. I want to give them stuff that they can use most likely. So when I go hiking, the first couple times, we're going to go here in town. If we're going to go biking or cycling, I'm probably going to find a Walmart or Target bike used, go over how to repair it, and find you the trails or parks closest to your house. So maybe you're going to carry it on. Now, once you get into it, we can explore further. But I want to find skills that are going to translate really close to you. So I'll look first at my city parks, what's in my neighborhood, what's things we can even do at your house. Trying to build in those opportunities are going to carry over for a lifetime. Because here's what's hopefully going to happen. I've introduced a skill for you at now 13, and maybe when you're still in your 30s, you're still carrying this because it's something you've chose. It's become a part of your identity that's not based on a trauma or some kind of outside factor. And it's a way that you've kind of maintained your own health, a toolbox that you've been given yourself. But with that, it comes that intentionality. So before we hit the trail, even if it's here in town, I'm going to ask the kid, hey, what's your goal for today? I'm going to try to tie that back to one of their more overarching goals. What that does is there's a thing called embodiment. And part of our, make sure I'm not carrying this in another slide. Yeah. I'll get to this. So we're talking about so many things our kids are tired of talking about. I'd rather feel it. I don't want to talk about what it feels like to have fear and where my fear comes from and a different coping skill. If I take you to the climbing center, we can do what we call is bottom up. I'm just going to work on this actual experience. And if through that learning cycle of the what, so what, now what, if you want to make it something bigger later on, that's super cool. We're not going to get that deep right now. So we're going up the wall. You got frustrated. I used to do this too. I just got slap at the wall until I got tired, and then I could come down. So wait, no, I just didn't have the gas to go on. I'm not going to go on to, why did you have that kind of frustration response? Why was that the way you chose? Instead, I'm going to just very directly say, hey, maybe next time when you get to that point, we're just going to stop. We're going to make a plan, and we're going to take our next steps. I'm not bringing up any deeper themes right then. We're just sticking to this. Now, after we build that rapport, we have multiple examples of this. If you want to take it deeper later on, that's cool. But I'm not forcing that because you might have trust issues of expressing those deeper. We're not even maybe thinking there right now. But on that same side, you got frustrated, you stopped, you now made a plan and got a few feet higher. You know what it feels like to work through that issue. That's once again not something I can take away. Maybe we're not there in therapy yet, but you can at least get the feeling of what it feels like to have a win, right? Same thing I think about hikes. I have kids who, they start to tire. I'm not going to go into maybe why they give up too quickly, stuff like that. You can say, what we can do is we can take a 5-minute break, rehydrate, don't sit down because it's harder to get back up. I'm just going to stick to the actual example right here. I felt that. Yeah, don't sit down. We're going to lean on a tree, catch our breath, maybe do some breath work. Then we're going to try to make it up to that next part of the trail. We're going to use the map, right? Working through that experience, they have physically felt the win. They felt themselves push past their boundary. And once again, if they want to talk about that later on in therapy, that's awesome. I'm also going to take those notes. I'm going to pass it to the therapist. Yeah. But in the moment, we're not dealing with that right now. I just want you to feel these kind of things. Same thing with those like community. Hey, I'm going to set up a safe game that you can be with people. I'm going to ask you at the end, hey, what did it feel like when you like pass the ball to whoever and then they pass it back to you? Think of kickball. I've had so many kids who the first time someone came to tag them with the ball, they expected someone just, like plow them over, to like try to hurt them. The fact that someone didn't, they tagged them and moved on. After that, I was like, what did that feel like? Well, it wasn't scary as I thought. So they felt that confidence, that safety grow. But it did take someone asking the question. But maybe not the bigger picture, but just saying, what did that feel like? Good thing about this learning cycle is it fits different personalities and different learning styles. My personal son, adopted with some different issues, he has a hard time putting things into words. I can say, what did that look like? Or what would you make like a meme of that? He'll come up with some kind of image. He's expressing himself. We're not to the words yet, but that's working, right? If you have the really sarcastic guy, ask him some kind of question, kind of around that. I've had some kids who are really, like into anime or whatever. Hey, what character did you feel like right then? Or like what movie or song you think would best match that? You're meeting them where they are, but you're still practicing expressing, right? That they're still learning that they can share those ideas without that negative consequence of someone saying, oh, well, that was stupid or whatever, right? They said it, and then they feel like they're being heard. And practicing, like, let's getting those ideas and kind of claiming them. Make sure I'm not missing. Yeah. The idea of embodiment and feeling instead of having to say it is so powerful. Same thing. I can tell you all day long you're strong. I can tell you all day that you're smart. But when you solve a puzzle, then you feel smart, right? Like, I know that. So having something that they can experience and then process through themselves is always going to be super impactful. So what's the core principle? We're going to embrace a posture of learning, curiosity, and patience, even when the path is rugged. We put our kids, I wouldn't say in uncomfortable positions, we put them in new positions that they might not have thought was really for them just yet. What we're going to do is we're going to model with them that, hey, we're doing this along with you, and that this is a lifelong process, that growth doesn't stop just because we've worked through a certain trauma. No, like that's something we all get to experience, we all get to go through together. Modeling that and going that with them. There's something about me telling a kid, the wall's over there, I want to see how far you can make it, versus me standing beside the kid and saying, what's your next step here? Where do you think you're going to climb? That's how I'm believing, right? We're tackling this together. Looking at a kid, saying, there's your canoe and there's your river, I want you to figure out your way, versus me sitting behind the kid in the boat, what's our next step, right? It's a journey together. We're having that experience, embodying that idea of we can meet challenges, we can have supports. It's okay to take a risk. The maybe it's not always going to turn out terrible. So with all that, all right. So you have those resources there. You have that kind of planning tool. What's something in your local area you think you could turn into a transformational experience? And it could be as simple as a hike, a kickball game. It's the fact that we take some experience that people are doing for fun. We're just having a stated goal with that. A couple more things I forgot to mention. So you go to the Forestry website, you can get these maps for free. We in Arkansas are super lucky to have all these state agencies. These guides, I picked them up from like Kroger and gas station, and they have great stuff. And even if that experience isn't perfect for me, I can still typically find a number that I can call and say, hey, here's what I would like, right? So with the resources, we may not have the most money in Arkansas, but we have access to stuff close to us. And that's what we want to tell our kids. You know, we express, it's not about do we have the material resources. If you have the sense of adventure and the opportunity, we can make something happen. So if y'all want to, maybe spend a couple of moments to think about what some of the places or the opportunities in your area that you might be able to turn into experience for your youth. Yeah. Spend like a minute or so. Yeah. So we're going to take a moment. Does anyone have an experience that they'd want to propose? Does anyone have an example they would want to share with the group?
Anyone want to share what they're talking about in the smaller groups?
You know, I think my slides and my talk might have been kind of rambling and scattered, but I think I could really tie it well to this. Yeah.
I work in a diagnostic practice sense, and so many of the kids have neurodevelopmental disorders, fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, plus trauma on top of that. So kind of like whole wheelhouse thing. And this is something that we hear all the time from parents and caregivers, that talk therapy is what causes dysregulation because they don't want to go talk about it, or it's like a progress, or they get discharged and they're just running through the mill, and mental health is kind of a bad subject sometimes. So this approach, I'm like, is this billable? Because I'm about to be recommending it to everybody. It would be the perfect combination of so many things for these kids that this is the first time that I've heard about it. So I'm excited. You did great.
So I can give you, like, I think a very concrete example of how I flowed through this. Recently I had a group of about 12 teen girls, mix of behavioral issues, some substance, some self-harm, stuff like that. So we're just going to do a hike. I said, hey, we're going to practice. If it was Saturday morning, what would you do to take care of yourself? We're not going to really rely on money. I kind of want us to get outside. So I think that sometimes our screens can pull us into a loop. So we're going to go on this hike, but our goal is to practice, how can I make this like something enjoyable I'd want to do? We hiked about an hour. So we're going to also practice like just exploring stuff, just looking around. They saw a creek, and I pointed out, hey, there's probably crawdads in there. Which set us forth the next hour of catching as many crawdads as we can. And then at the very end of that hike, like, what stood out to y'all? So I knew I wanted them to claim what was good about this, what they enjoyed. And I realized we didn't argue that hour. Hey, like, I was surprised that there was a crawdad there. I wonder what other stuff maybe I just didn't know. I did not talk about their bigger issues and why you maybe went back to substances when you're bored or whatever. Just say, in this moment, what was good? Then that last, what are you going to do with this when you go back home? I heard a couple, I'll probably at least start walking my block. Or I have a friend, we always just talk on the phone, maybe I can meet her in person. Like, we can go to the mall and just take a lap. Like, okay, so you found something that you're going to take back, translate to improve your life, right? Just that short intentionality was something they appreciate and was able to like translate for their health. Yeah.